Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to pick a flight school. For those of you that are interested in actually becoming airline pilots, I've got a link in the description of a video I did specifically based on that subject. Today I'm going to talk about what questions to ask when you go to a flight school so that you're well prepared to pick the right one. For everybody new to my channel, my name is Omar. I'm a 20-year flight instructor, currently about 20,000 hours of flight time, former airline captain, current flight school owner, and been working on getting my A&P license for about 3 years. Today I'm going to talk about the questions of what to ask a flight school or how to pick a good flight school. Let's get right into it. All right, so the first step that I recommend that you take is schedule an introductory flight, sometimes called a demo flight at the school. That's a great way to see if you're actually interested in this. The school's going to take you up from half hour to an hour. They should let you fly the airplane a little bit. The instructor will obviously do the takeoff and landing for safety reasons, but you should be able to get some stick time when you're up there. See if you like it. When you get back down on the ground, 9 times out of 10, I have people tell me, when can I start? That's a good indication. If you get back and you're a little bit nervous, you may want to think about whether or not you want to get into this. Another great question to ask is when you actually go in for your introductory flight to the school, it's a great opportunity to get to know the owner and the instructors at the school. Are the instructors personable? Do they look presentable? Are they professional looking? Are they on time? When you walked in, do they even know you were coming in for your appointment, or did they lose track of it? First impressions are everything. So talk to the owner. Is the owner a flight instructor? That's important because in order for an owner to support operation of flight school and the flight instructors, he's going to have to know all of their challenges. It's important for an owner to at least be a pilot, and it helps a lot to be a flight instructor. Ask all the questions, see what the responses are, and get a good feel for the environment once you're there. Another great question to ask is, what equipment does the school have? Not just what type of airplanes do they have, but also is it the same type of equipment? So we use Cessnas at my school. I like using high wing airplanes because my students can see the ground better when they're learning how to do takeoffs and landings. And I learned that they can pick up takeoffs and landings a little bit quicker versus a Piper on the low wing where the ground is covered, you can't see it, you're kind of guessing where the ground is. Can you get your private in a Piper just fine? Absolutely. That's just personal preference for me. So ask them if they have all one type of airplane, or ask them if they have various types. The reason I like to use all one type of airplane is because it's no secret, airplanes break down, sometimes unexpectedly. So when an airplane has a mechanical and you show up to your lesson, if they have 3 172s and 3 Pipers, are the other 172s taken? You're not going to want to transition into a Piper. It's going to feel different. You're going to want to stay in a 172. So if the school has all one type of airplane, that's one advantage that you'll have, being able to be switched into another plane that they have at the school. Do they own their airplanes is another question you should ask, or do they lease the airplanes back? So one of the big things with leasebacks is if somebody has an airplane and they want to give it to a flight school to fly and create revenue for them, they can lease it back to the flight school. The problem with that is when that person who owns that airplane decides they're done leasing the school the airplane, you as the student show up, there's no airplanes at the school. That's one of the big requirements of financing companies. When they partner with schools, they ask schools, are your aircraft leased back? And if they are, they're not going to extend financing options to the students because historically that has happened. Lastly, how are the payments structured? Do you have to pay thousands up front, or can you pay as you go? I don't like the thousands up front because over 20 years ago when I got my private, the school that I started at required me to give them thousands up front. When I enrolled in school, I quickly found out I didn't like the ownership. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like how the owner would yell at the instructors. The instructors were always scared of the owner, back and forth. It wasn't a good learning environment. But unfortunately, I was stuck at the school because they had my money and they wouldn't do refunds once you gave them a deposit. So when I started a school, I don't do the money up front thing. It's pay as you go. That's important. There's no real reason why a school should take your money up front. If they need your money up front, that's a bad sign. That's a sign that they're operating with low cash reserves, which is very risky. And B, if somebody wants your money up front, that's a warning sign. They want to kind of trap you there. Be careful with that. Another great question to ask. I don't get asked this question enough. I always have to emphasize this to the students, prospective students, is ask the school what their first time check ride pass rate is. Your check ride is the term that we use for your test. The FAA comes to the school and they administer your private pilot test. It's called the check ride. Ask the school, what percentage of your students pass the check ride on the first attempt? That's important. I have a 95% pass rate. That's very high. It's unusually high. If the school has anything less than a 80% pass rate, that's something you might want to consider, because if you're actually trying to do this for a career and go to the airlines pay attention to pass rate. When I went to my interview for SkyWest, one of the things that they asked me was, how did your training go? What check rides did you fail? How many did you fail? If you had more than 2 check ride failures, that would be a pretty significant event, and the airline would look at you and say, well, this guy had a lot of trouble during his training. Maybe it's not a good idea to hire him because he or she is going to have trouble with our training program. So when you go to the school, you don't want to go somewhere that has a very low pass rate, because that's going to affect your future employment opportunities. Be careful with that one. Another great question to ask is whether the school uses glass cockpit or steam gauges. This is not a deal breaker. If they use one or the other, it's not the end of the world, but I prefer to use the old school system of 6-pack gauges. If you train on glass, you become heavily dependent on the glass. And if that glass were to be taken away from you and it fails during flight, I can't tell you how many students I've seen panic and say, I don't know where I am. What do I do? I need my iPad, and they freak out all unnecessarily. When I was doing my training, I never had glass. And so I really learned the landscape. I learned to build a mental picture in my head of where I was, where the airplane was, where the airports were. I got really strong at that, and I'm not dependent on glass. Fast forward to when I was a captain at the airlines, taking off out of Chicago O'Hare, we go to take off, and just immediately after takeoff, we lose all of our glass screens. The first officer at the time panicked, freaks out, doesn't know what to do, and I just, we worked through the problem, kind of calmed him down, notified ATC, we worked the problem, got it fixed, taken care of. I was really disappointed in the reaction from the first officer, and I asked him, hey, did you learn on glass or did you learn on 6-pack gauges? He learned on glass at one of the popular pilot academies out there that are cranking pilots out. Again, that doesn't mean every pilot is going to panic in that scenario if they use glass instead of 6-pack steam gauges. That's just my personal preference. I think it puts out a better pilot. In addition to that, you're going to be using glass for the rest of your career. So, and the airline's going to pay for all of that glass training. So take this time to learn on 6-pack gauges, because you're probably not going to have that opportunity again. Another great question to ask is, does the school have a Redbird simulator? When I got into flight training, these simulators didn't exist. There was no technology developed. Now there is. I can tell you right now, having the Redbird at my school gives us tremendous amount of flexibility, advantages, such as, if the weather is bad outside, if it's raining, we have the simulator to do a lot of the training that's approved through the FAA for the simulator. We can have scenarios that we can do in the simulator that we can't do in the real airplane. Presenting an engine failure on takeoff below 1,000 feet, very dangerous in the real airplane. We can do it in the simulator. So having that simulator as a tool really helps to make the training a higher quality training. If you're trying to do this for a career, a good question to ask the school is if they have an airline pilot program. It's not critical that they have that. You can still get your ratings the old traditional way, but schools that have airline pilot programs, they're kind of organized to have a accelerated program where it can get you done in 7, 8, 9 months. If you don't have an accelerated program, getting all your ratings can take a year, year and a half, sometimes even 2 years. So that's a question you can ask them, like, hey, do you have a full-time accelerated program? I really want to finish. I want to get this done. I want to get to the airlines a lot quicker. So that's a good question to ask the school. All right, guys, if you found this video useful, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel. It helps tremendously. I'm going to be putting out videos about how to save time and money in flight training. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.